Thank you for listening to the BJJ Podcast. We'll be bringing you Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and good times. We hope to flatten your Jiu-Jitsu learning curve, help you get the most out of your grappling ability, and meet your goals both on and off the mat.
Welcome back to the BJJBrick Podcast. This is episode 232. My name is Byron. I'm here with my buddies Gary and Joe. They just got matching broken heart tattoos, and it really looks nice when they're hanging out together. And they kind of reunite their little tattoos together. This is going to be a great episode. We have Lachlan Giles joining us for the interview of the week. My freshly tattooed buddies, what's up, my friends?
Byron, how you doing, man?
Doing good.
Yeah, Byron, we cannot wait to get you on the mat. It's like you always get a freebie against us right off the bat, but it's going to be payback time there someday, my friend.
What do you mean by this?
I'm going to have your back, literally.
Nice. Well, that happens from time to time. That's not a big deal. I just know that...
No, it doesn't.
if I see...
When's the last time I got your back? It doesn't happen.
You just know. You go side, north, south, Kimura.
Because I can't get your back.
No need. We got a great episode. We have a quote that Gary can make work somehow. It's going to be amazing. And a really cool article from one of our past guests, Bernardo Faria. So, man, we got it going on, guys.
Yeah, we always have it going on. And speaking of having it going on, I actually have the off-the-mat lesson today. Normally, I don't ever have one because I'm not very smart and can figure these things out. But, I had kind of a weird situation that happened with me and my son, and it was a lack of communication on my side and kind of messed everything up. But kind of what happened was my son was getting ready to have a basketball game, and so I was telling him to be aggressive. And my son growing up with me and growing up around the wrestling mats and wrestling and everything, he took when I said be aggressive literally, kind of like I have your back literally. But, what I was meaning is, play really hard on defense, move your feet, try to, get in the passing lane, steal the ball. When you get the ball, give a pump fake and go straight to the basket trying to score, if not draw a foul. But I didn't do a very good job of communicating. I just told him to be aggressive. And, with me and my buddies, the way we play is we choke each other out. We try to break each other's arms. We twist them in the wrong angles. We, double leg blast each other into another county. So what my son took it as is let's get out there and be really physical and throw people around. And my son's a little guy for his age, but he's kind of a scrapper. So he's going out there and he's just grabbing everybody and throwing them. And it was not a pretty sight. He ended up getting fouls left and right. And he wasn't having fun. He didn't have a smile on his face like he normally does when he plays basketball. And so at halftime, and normally I try never to get involved with a game, that's up for the coach and everything. But, I know my son better than anybody. And so I knew that I gave him bad information and he's going to follow exactly what I say. And, he had a rough first half. He was just, nothing was going his way. He was, trying to throw bigger people around. And so at halftime I went up to him. I was like, hey, Connor, I'm sorry I messed up. When I said play aggressive, I meant for you to hustle everywhere, try to get the loose ball, run back, play hard defense. Don't follow people. Don't, attack people. I think I told it to you wrong. I want to see a smile on your face when you're out there playing. In the second half, it was a totally different story. He didn't get any fouls. He probably scored, 8 points, just had a really good game. And, it made me think that, especially if you're teaching younger kids or you need to, I can't just say something. I need to make sure everybody explains it. Like, hey, I want you to do this. Does everybody understand what I'm talking about? Instead of me just saying, hey, I want you to do this and then turn my back and go away. So semantics, a way of explaining stuff and making sure that your audience knows exactly what you're saying will definitely pay big dividends.
Yeah, good lesson, Gary. I like that one. It goes to on both, like communicating well and taking responsibility when the communicating doesn't go well. Because you could, it's like clearly you don't mean to foul kids all the time. But you took responsibility. Hey, my bad. I didn't communicate what I really wanted you to try to do out there, which made it easy for him to, change what he was doing and not feel bad about it and just play the way he should be playing.
Yeah, but it kind of backfired the next week, too. I told him next week, go out with a smile on your face and just play great. But kind of a crazy story is he gets a breakaway layup and gets smacked in the mouth. And no foul was called, which, no biggie. It happens. But I see him holding his mouth, and it looked like something fell into his hand and then fell onto the floor. And I realized he got one of his teeth knocked out. So he reaches down, grabs his tooth off the floor, runs over and puts it on the bench so he didn't lose it because he wanted to make sure he got some money for it. And then runs down the court and just smashes the guy who did it. And ended up getting a flagrant foul and getting put on the bench. But on that one, I was, he got his tooth knocked out. I was kind of proud of him for, just getting up and keep playing.
Yeah.
How do you lose a tooth and not get the call?
Yeah, that's the crazy part. That's especially not even a front tooth. It was one of his side teeth. I'm glad it was a baby tooth. Otherwise, I'd probably have a huge medical bill or dentist bill.
Wow. It really hit him pretty hard
good
then,
stuff, Gary.
Yeah, either that or he's got loose teeth because I don't do a very good job of telling him to brush his teeth, He
gets those tough genes from his mother.
Yeah, definitely not from me. You've seen me on the mat. I'm a baby.
Oh, man. Basketball is tougher than you think, I guess.
Yeah, all the years I played basketball, I think I've had probably more injuries in basketball than I have in jiu-jitsu. But I actually think jiu-jitsu is much tougher.
I do think it can be safer, though. A lot of that depends on your training partners.
Yeah, definitely. I agree.
If you have good training partners, it's a safe way to stay in shape, and that brings us to our sponsor this week. Health IQ is sponsoring the show. Health IQ is a life insurance company that looks for people who are living healthy lifestyles and rewards them with lower life insurance. The simple comparison is with car insurance. If you have a good driving record, you don't pay as much for your car insurance. If you have a bad driving record, you're getting pulled over all the time, you're getting caught in races like Gary and all these sort of crazy things, you're going to pay more for your car insurance. So that's not really being done in the life insurance industry. You basically just pay the same as everybody, except for Health IQ. If you're healthy, you're likely to live longer. If you're training jiu-jitsu, you're likely to be healthy, thus also live longer. Don't pay the same life insurance rates as everybody else out there. Check out the link in the show notes to Health IQ, and they have a little quiz, and it is hard, but they basically want to figure out kind of how fit you are, and then some knowledge you have of different healthy lifestyle things, eating and that sort of thing. And I think Gary and Joe have done it, and they did far better than me. But it was very challenging for that quiz. But it's just kind of fun to see. I learned a lot taking the quiz. But go there, check it out, check out the quiz, and look into saving yourself money for something that we all need to have. Provide safety to our families if something bad happens to us. So Health IQ, check out the link in the show notes.
Byron, we talk about the specific company because they're sponsoring the show right now. But really, guys, if you're in your 30s, 40s, and you've got a family and you don't have life insurance, you're taking a big risk that you may leave them with a lot of unexpected expenses. And man, if I were to pass, I wouldn't want to leave my family in that position. So if you don't have life insurance, go check it out.
And hey, we're talking about saving money here today. Our quote this week is from a guy who is really good at saving money, Ben Franklin. And what he said, we talked about it last week, is a penny saved is a penny earned. And Byron thinks that there's no way I can translate this into about jiu-jitsu. But I think I can, and I think I can prove him wrong.
All right.
But basically, a penny saved is a penny earned. Money not spent is, money in your pocket. Basically, you can earn money with that. You can earn interest. But the way I look at it, a penny saved is a penny earned, is a penny is also knowledge. Knowledge is power. Knowledge is money. And basically, the way I was kind of looking at it is, if Byron teaches me some concepts, teaches me some new moves, teaches me stuff, I basically have that. It's earned. I've drilled it. I've earned it. I am now putting it back into my brain. I'm drilling it. My myelin is getting thicker. How do you like that, Byron? Threw myelin in there.
Big word. Good word.
Yeah. Yep. And basically, I'm learning stuff. Money is knowledge. That's the way I look at it.
There's another jiu-jitsu application to that quote. So just to make sure everybody knows that Byron's going to be wrong twice today. The other aspect is with injuries. Injuries accumulate, and everybody knows that the more you get banged up, the harder it is to keep moving later in life. And so if you train smart, you choose your training partners wisely. Like, an injury not incurred is an injury that's not going to be in that bank 10 years down the road. So yeah, good, smart training, injury avoidance, and your health bank account will be much fuller when you're 50.
Man, I didn't think of that one, Joe, but that is great. As I'm sitting here, holding a microphone, and my wrist hurts. And, and it's really, both my wrists, I rolled here a little bit before we came on. And, I had a little bit of 30 minutes before we started talking. And, I had ice packs on both wrists. And that's, injuries that have occurred. And I have not taken enough time off to really heal them. And like you said, it's another application of that quote. And, I'd like to hear Byron's take on this quote. Wouldn't you, Joe?
Yeah, I'm real interested.
A penny saved is a penny earned, man. You guys have done really well with this quote. I'm going to just go for the easy kill here. If you're spending money on other activities, that money is not available for jiu-jitsu style of activities.
You're wrong, Byron.
It's not
wrong
being
3
saved
times today. Actually, I didn't think of that one. That was the most applicable one right there. Good job.
But you're not really saving your money. You're just waiting to spend it somewhere else.
No, but what's the biggest thing you hear? Well, I guess there's time too, but one of the big things I hear about people not training is they don't have the money. Everybody thinks jiu-jitsu is expensive, and I hear that over and over again. But if it really means something to you, stop going out to eat once a week. Going out to eat once a week, that'll pay for you right there. You're saving money for at the end of the month, so you got money for your monthly dues.
Bada boom, bada bing.
Man, could go a long time with this quote. It's a good one, Gary.
Yeah.
Knocked it out of the park today.
So if you missed
and
last
Byron
week's...
said it was a bad one. So, Byron, you lost again. That's 4th time today.
If you missed last week's episode, Gary threw this one out at the end. And also we threw out I think it was last week, we threw out the idea of getting matching tattoos, just kind of a funny opening. And Gary's like, I could make this quote happen. And I said, okay, well, I'll write it down and we'll see if we can get it to work. And he did it.
We have to be wearing the right no-gi shorts actually for our matching tattoos to be visible. So not everybody gets to see them.
Well, I don't know if they're actually called shorts or chaps.
We need to make grappling chaps.
That probably wouldn't be a bad idea.
That's a terrible idea. The only
Have
time
I ever told you about my idea about making cauliflower ear inserts?
To look tough?
Yeah, there's people who want cauliflower ear. I think somehow, we should be able to, make some kind of inserts that you clip in and looks realistic that you have cauliflower ear. I think people would buy them.
Yep, and then those fake sleeve tattoos you pull up, and
yeah,
you'd be a tough guy in 10 minutes.
Definitely.
That sounds like an audiobook Gary once wrote.
Well, it's going to be here shortly.
Oh, man.
Give us about 15 minutes.
After the interview, we'll see what we get. And actually, I'm going to have a little surprise for you guys on that one as well. But, I had a great time interviewing Lachlan Giles. A lot of cool explanations, which we realize this is a podcast. It's audio. I'm fully confident that we can provide something that you could listen to that actually helps you get better at jiu-jitsu, helps you stay motivated. It's not impossible. But man, the way he was explaining things, it was coming across like he was with me, and I'm like, this makes perfect sense. And I was really excited to get him on the show. And once I got to talking to him, man, like when you we'll get to the part where he's talking about learning takedowns and some things he does differently, when teaching those. And it's just like, this makes total sense to me, and I was so glad to hear that. And then then I get all pumped up. But anyway, so that's coming up. Here we go. Lachlan Giles. He is the most interesting grappler in the world.
He has had a short career as a pharmacist. He got fired because he was recommending jiu-jitsu for 95% of his patients. His idea of a performance-enhancing drug is better technique. He has been tested for this, and the results were positive. Chuck Norris's wife has a tattoo of his face.
I don't always listen to podcasts, but when I do, I prefer the BJJ Podcast. Stay sweaty, my friends.
All right, my friends, I'm happy to bring Lachlan Giles to the BJJ Podcast. Lachlan, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm real excited to have you here. We've had a couple of your students on here, and they talked very well about you, and now we get you and really the heart of what you're up to there in Australia. Craig Jones, check out that episode. He talked about you quite a bit, and Kit Dale mentioned you several times as well. Lachlan, besides training with those guys, give us a little bit of personal history about you and jiu-jitsu and what you're up to.
Well, I've been training a long time now, about 16 years. I was about 15 years old when I first started jiu-jitsu, and that was after training Kung Fu. I watched the Jet Li movie, and I thought, Kung Fu looks pretty good. So I started that, and then somehow, this would have been about 13 or 14 years old, and then somehow I came across UFC 1 and saw Royce Gracie kicking ass with jiu-jitsu, and I thought, first I sort of tried to deny that it was better than Kung Fu, but then I started to think maybe I needed to try a jiu-jitsu class, and then once after that, I was hooked. So I was training, I was obviously pretty young then, so I was training, a couple of times a week. It was a pretty far drive. My dad used to drive me about, 40 minutes to the jiu-jitsu school. There weren't many schools around in those days. And so I sort of was I'd say a hobbyist probably up until probably eight years ago. So when I was a brown belt, I managed to actually do pretty well at one of the Abu Dhabi so in Australia, one of the trials for the Abu Dhabi Pro, which was like a combined brown black belt division, and I came second in that. And when I came second in that, I sort of realized that maybe I could actually do pretty well in competition if I focused a bit more. So probably the last 8 years, I've actually really knuckled down, and what I'd say has been I say full-time jiu-jitsu in that, like, I probably train as much as my body will allow without overdoing it. So I wouldn't, even if I had more free time during the day, I'd still probably wouldn't train more, because I think it's important to have enough rest as well. But yeah, so here we are now. Opened up Absolute St Kilda around just over 3 years ago. So that's one of there's three gyms under the banner of Absolute. Oh, well, now 4 now, because I got Shanghai. But there's 4 gyms under Absolute, and I'm a coach out of the St Kilda gym.
You got a lot going there. I want to kind of rewind a little bit and learn about you making that transition. I think you said you were a brown belt. You got second at ADCC trials, and it was like kind of a switch. Like, I might be able to do this at a very high level.
Yeah.
What was that like? What did you change
after that?
Yeah. What did you change to take it to the next? Try to get to that next level.
I think it was more like my focus, because I was training. I competed, occasionally, at that stage too. But just to, I suppose, having got so close to, that was probably the hardest competition in Australia to win at the time, because the prize was flights and accommodation and so on to Abu Dhabi to compete in their World Championships. So I knew that was such an important competition for so many people in Australia. So after that, I think I just started to study jiu-jitsu a lot more. I started to look into techniques a lot more. My partner, my fiance, Liv, she had just started jiu-jitsu around that time as well, which was probably a bit of a catalyst too. So suddenly, when the person you're in a relationship with does jiu-jitsu, it means you can you can knuckle down a bit more. And she was training at a different place, and her coach, his name was Dan Shaw. He was a very studious guy. Like, he was watching the Mundials, the Worlds, and a lot of instructional DVDs and studying the game a bit. So just speaking to him and getting his influence as well, and his take on jiu-jitsu kind of changed the way I looked at the sport a bit. And so that kind of, I think everything sort of came together there, and I started putting a lot of time and effort into jiu-jitsu after that.
So you say you put in, I think you call it like near full-time training. You could train more. You have time available, but your body is getting the most training that you can get out of it. Is that correct?
Well, yeah. I mean, so for quite a few of those years, I was working part-time as a physiotherapist, and then I was doing my PhD up until a year ago. But during that, I was still training twice a day most of the time. So, I don't think you can get away with much more than twice a day. So when I say full time, I might have had other work or other commitments going on, but I feel like, I wouldn't, even if I didn't have those commitments, I still would have been able to, I wouldn't have been able to do much more jiu-jitsu. So I'll say it was full time.
What is your training regimen like now?
I'm actually, because I'm now 31 years old, so I'm actually trying to, I feel the effects of training a little more than I used to, so I'm actually trying to do a little less training than before. So I'm trying to do one good session a day, and maybe a little bit of light technique or like specific training at the other session during the day. I'm obviously teaching classes, probably on average 3, maybe 4 classes a day. But I'll probably only have hard rolls in one of the classes, and maybe do some specific training in the other one.
Yeah, Lachlan, I've heard things about both sides. It's, for some competitors, if they're teaching, it kind of makes it hard to compete at their level they want to be at. And some competitors say that teaching helps a little bit. In fact, that it makes them look at jiu-jitsu differently and through a different set of eyes. How does teaching affect your competitive grappling?
I think, it's definitely I could do it differently if I was all up to me and I didn't have students to teach. I think from a technical point of view, it's great. You will hone down on, because anything that you do, you start to break it down, because you're going to teach. Usually you'll often teach your game as well as other, parts of jiu-jitsu as well, but you're teaching your game to your students, and then, people ask you questions and about, what if they do this or that, and it makes you actually really analyze how and why your techniques work, which can often come back and improve the way you do it, because you get a better understanding exactly what you're trying to do with that technique. So I think from a technical point of view, it's good. I think, I could probably design a better training program for myself if it was just all focused on me, but that's the trade-off, I guess. I think I think it's because it's most of my training is still done in the class format. I've got students when I'm doing my roles or my specific training, I'm doing the class for everyone, not just for me.
Yeah.
So it might be things that I see that other people need to work on, and I say, okay, well, let's focus on this area today. Whereas obviously if it was my own training, I'd only do things that I need to work on, which wouldn't be suitable for the class necessarily.
Yeah. And is there, and this might be a dumb question, but taking that question on, like flipping it over, how has competing at this high level changed you as a coach?
I'm not sure it does.
Okay.
Too much. I think.
I was wondering. Okay, I'll just strike that under the kind of a dumb question.
No. I think it's a good question, but I think most of my students are not like trying to be high level world champions. So I don't try to enforce the way I sort of approach jiu-jitsu onto them in that regard. I don't know how much of an influence that has.
Yeah. So you have been competing at this high level for quite a while. Also, you had to take school very seriously as well. What was that like, and how did that go?
That was all right. I did my PhD. So that was obviously I did my undergraduate physiotherapy course. That was just I came out of high school. So that that was almost 10 years ago that I finished that. And then I started my PhD, would have been about 5 years ago, and finished that about a year ago. So, actually that was technically a full-time PhD, but I don't reckon I put full-time hours into it. But I somehow finished it and I completed the degree. So, at times it was really hard. Like, it was because it's research based. So there were times when I had to submit a paper by a certain date or whatever, and when that was the case, I'd be up till 3 a.m, writing, and that was reasonably stressful and difficult. But then there was times when there wasn't too much I had to do, and I could just train as much as I like. But I had to, training's really fun, but I had to put, when I had a deadline for the PhD, I had to put that first, if that makes sense. I could still train, because if you're working, I can't think of a single job that involves your brain where writing or research where you're going to be an effective writer for 12 hours a day.
Yeah,
you're trying to write up your paper and you're doing it for 12 hours of the day. Like, I would go insane if I didn't break that up by going to jiu-jitsu class and actually exercising and relieving a bit of stress doing that. So yeah.
And some people talk about having benefits after they get done exercising. They get back to it, they're working that next hour or two is much more productive than the several hours beforehand. Absolutely,
I think that's pretty well been studied quite a lot and shown to be very true. So. To be honest, for me, I don't. If after about 2 hours of anything, writing wise, I need a break regardless. Whether it's going and doing jiu-jitsu or if I have to, just watch a YouTube clip or something just to get my mind off it for a moment, and then I'll come back to it. So yeah, so in a way, like, as much as it's a lot of time and effort, I don't think it impacted my jiu-jitsu too much. Maybe other parts of my life. I probably watched less television or something, which is probably a good thing.
Just didn't have that kind of idle time to just do it, nothing or whatever people do. Well, you got a PhD by the end of it, and you're a world-class competitor, kind of the same time frame, and you had a lot of stuff going on at the same time. See on your profile that you also have competed and done, champion at Australian freestyle wrestling. Tell me a little bit about that. That sounds interesting.
That was that competition was not too difficult. There was only a couple of people entered for some reason, but I've been training wrestling pretty. So even at the moment, I'm doing 3 sessions a week of wrestling. So that's where I've got to head off to after this, actually. But I've actually, it's very hard to say how long I've been training for in wrestling, because basically when I first started, like when I was probably 17 or 18, which would have been, 12 or 13 years ago, I started doing some wrestling then. And then I had a knee injury from that, which I kind of said, all right, I'm done with wrestling. I'm not doing that anymore. I had to get surgery on my knee. And then probably 2 or 3 years ago, I came back to it. And I think that was after I qualified for ADCC in Brazil. So I won the ADCC trials, which were held in Korea, to compete at ADCC Brazil, which was 2015. So this would have been about 3 years ago. And I decided, well, if I'm doing ADCC, I've got to get good at wrestling. So I started training wrestling, and then obviously qualifying for ADCC again made me focus even more on that. So I really enjoy it. It helps so much with jiu-jitsu if you get good at wrestling. It's just maybe a bit more physically demanding than jiu-jitsu can be.
Lachlan, I hear people from time to time say that they train wrestling, and that doesn't tell me really what they're doing. Sometimes that just simply means that they're working on takedowns for jiu-jitsu or MMA or no-gi. And sometimes they're actually doing wrestling, working on pins and the different positions that wrestling has. What are you doing when you say you train? Like in today, you're going to go do wrestling. What does that mean?
It's wrestling. When I'm training wrestling, we don't do submissions.
Okay, yeah.
It's probably more like how in the class I focus a little different to what some of the other people focus. So we got our coach was at the Olympics last year. Not last year, the year before now. 2016 Olympics in Rio. And we've got a guy that's there training as well that's in the Commonwealth Games coming up. So there's some pretty good coaches and competitors there. But they're obviously, they're working everything in wrestling. For me, I just try to focus on the first point part, like from standing to the ground. So I imagine if I'm wrestling against one of them, I try to get the first points, which is obviously very difficult against someone of that level. But so try and get them to their back, or get around towards their back from there. And maybe I spend a little bit of time trying to turn them over, get the pin, but more of that happens in the transition. I treat it like it's a ADCC. Like if I was doing a double leg and I had a chance to kind of hold them on their back, which is actually how the ADCC rules work anyway. Like you actually to get points for a takedown, you got to get them flat on their back for 3 seconds, which is crazy because that's very hard to do. So I focus on that a bit. I imagine it's an ADCC match almost, but without the submissions.
And so is that a pretty big advantage to train with these athletes versus normal jiu-jitsu people that are trying to wrestle? You're actually getting really good wrestlers in there and working with them. Imagine that's a huge advantage. Especially
when, going into, I think if you're just doing it as a hobbyist, it probably doesn't matter that much. But if you're trying to compete at something like ADCC, you want to have very high level wrestlers. I think you need to feel really confident in your wrestling to be able to do it in competition, because especially once you add submissions, it's so dangerous shooting for a leg if someone can guillotine you or get a Kimura or anything really. Any of those submissions that can occur during that process, leg attacks even as well. You go for a single leg, they can do the scissor takedown to a heel hook, So there's a lot you have to watch out for, and therefore I feel like you have to be really, really good at the takedown part of it. It's got to be quick. You got to be able to get the leg and get them down before they can really set up a good counter attack or submission. So having high level wrestling training partners means that, like, if you can actually get your move to work on them, you know that, the guy that you fight, even in ADCC, is not going to be as good as your Olympic wrestler at defending a takedown. So, well, they shouldn't be.
Yeah, unless they are an Olympic wrestler.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's right. I fought JT Torres at ADCC, and he took me down. So even I felt good with the wrestling, but he was fast. So yeah. Anyway, more work to do.
Yeah. This is kind of an interesting area of training we're talking about, because you're training with really high wrestlers, and then you get really good at your takedowns to where you could, you kind of get on there and you feel how to pull these off, and then you try to transition this over to where somebody could throw on a guillotine or catch you in something else as you're shooting in, and you can't expect a wrestler to do that for you as a training partner. How do you, besides you mentioned like wanting to hit that takedown fast, how do you make sure that you're doing the right thing? This doesn't need to be necessarily about just takedowns, but any part of your game. Make sure that it's good enough for what the competition is going to bring to you. How do you work on that?
I think for ADCC, again, for the Brazil ADCC, we started running I think it was for that, or maybe it was for this most recent ADCC trials that occurred. We started running like a class under ADCC rules. So we basically did like first point from a few different positions and areas that are unique to the ADCC rule set. So we start standing, and you got to try. You don't get points unless you take them down and hold them on their back, or obviously get the back. But we're doing that with submissions. So in wrestling class, I'll just be doing takedowns without the submissions. But then we're putting that all together. So I've got Craig Jones or Kit or Levo. There's a bunch of really good grapplers we've got there who are trying to guillotine me or submit me while I shoot my takedown in that class. So I'm still getting that side of it as well. I think it's very easy if you put submissions in with takedowns when people first start doing wrestling, they just won't shoot. They shoot once, they get caught in a guillotine. They do it again, they get caught again, and then they're okay, and they become very hesitant. And then they don't learn. So I think it's much better to practice without the submissions first and get good at wrestling, and then start adding the submissions in, because it's some little adjustments will save you from getting the guillotine or the Kimura or anything like that. What was the other part of the question?
I don't know, but that is perfect what I wanted to hear. Like, that is great advice about learning takedown, especially for us jiu-jitsu people out there. You shoot once, you get guillotine. Okay, I'll try to keep my head up a little bit, maybe my shoulders shrugged. Shoot again, guillotined again, and I'm okay. I'm done shooting because it didn't work, and I don't have the confidence, because you need confidence to take that shot. It's like going for an armbar from mount. You need confidence to do that because you already have mount. Like you have to put a little bit of risk involved. But just the idea of just training without the guillotines or without the submissions at all, just to shoot, just to get that shot figured out, and then just make a little adjustments to the shot once you've got the actual shot figured out. That's a great training advice.
Yeah, I think I'm trying to do that with like something to a similar effect with most of the techniques I'm teaching now as well, because I realize often you show a technique, and then we at least do specific training, right? Which is if I show let's say it's an armbar, but it could be a sweep or whatever. So here's an armbar, now let's practice that with resistance. So you got to try and do the move we just did against a resisting opponent. But which is really good. It's better than just, I think it's much better than saying, let's just roll, because then they've seen the technique, but then they never actually felt what it's like to do it with resistance, and they may forget about it, whereas at least you're getting them a chance to practice it over and over and over again with resistance, and so they can feel some of the ways people defend, and hopefully work their way around that. That's my goal when I do that. But I'm trying now to even go a bit further than that, because I think that's pretty hard. It's pretty hard to get a technique to work when you just learn it and someone's resisting. If that makes sense.
Yeah, because they also just learned it, and they've thought about it as well, and there's no surprise going on.
That's right. Yeah. So now I'm actually trying to do I give the person who's defending like one or two options. Like you're only allowed to defend it by doing this particular thing, like a common way that people defend, but you're only allowed to defend by that. You can't do this, and this all together because it's going to be very hard for them to navigate their way around that. And I think that's kind of similar to saying, well, let's do takedowns, but you're not allowed to do the submission yet. Like it gives the person confidence to try it, and they'll learn how to defend one part of the. If you're doing wrestling, and they're trying to do the submission, but there's probably two parts here. Like if I want to get someone down with a double leg, for example, there's the sprawl and them just straight out defending my takedown, and then there's them going for the submission. If I can eliminate the submission part, at least they get to feel what it's like, how to beat someone sprawling and how to beat them, trying to underhook you when you shoot. And there's a bunch of different things you could put restraints on to make it so it's a good process for learning for the person. Does that make sense?
Yeah. You're doing a great job of explaining the concepts, and I think that, I think listeners would be really good to take this advice and to kind of put limits on themselves or limits on their training partners and switch back and forth and really just kind of get that part of your game that needs work on it to be developed one step at a time instead of trying to take that big step and end up with the end result, first step and then second step, and then we're going to add this. That's awesome.
So if I can break it down a bit more, let's say there's, you're teaching an armbar and there's three ways the person can get out. You've figured out there's three ways that they will escape the armbar. Then you just tell the person defending, you can only do one of those three ways, okay? And that way, the person who's new to the armbar still gets it's a challenge for them. You want it to be challenging, because if it's too easy and the person's just reaching their arm up, then no one really learns much then. So they're still trying to get out in one certain way, and you learn how to deal with that defense. And then you can say, okay, guys, now they're going to do the other way of defending the armbar, the defense number 2, and then you learn how to beat that. And then you'd say, let's do defense number 3. And then suddenly you actually know how to defend. You know how to beat, however they're defending the armbar, you now know how to beat it. You need to put it all together and do it as a full process. That's ideal. I wish I could do that more in training, and I should be doing that more. So, yeah.
How does your training change based on the event that's coming up next? And when do you make changes to that? Like ADCC has some pretty specific rules. If you're going to a gi tournament, you got to get ready for that. When do you make these adjustments and start making a strategy for a specific thing?
For ADCC, as soon as we qualified, we were actually even before the qualifiers, because we wanted to win the qualifiers. We were already training that rule set, twice a week, specifically in class, and then at any no-gi session, obviously, we'd focus on that. Just generally, for my philosophy, which I think is probably quite similar to Marcelo Garcia's, for example, is just have a game that sort of transcends the different the rule sets. So if you got a game if you got good grips that don't rely on the actual gi, so a game that works gi or no gi in terms of the grips, you can obviously make, if I'm fighting someone in the gi, I can still grip their gi, but it might be, like underhooks, for example, are a great thing that work gi or no gi, whereas if you're trying to play spider guard and then you go no gi, you're going to have a lot of trouble, or a lapel game. So I tend to avoid spider guard and lapel based systems in favor of more getting a hold of a leg, or a wrist grip if I can. So that helps a lot. And then specifically for an event, if it's an event I really care about, then I'll probably spend a good 8 weeks beforehand, maybe even longer than that. Probably focusing, if let's say it's the Mundial, the Gi Worlds, I would probably spend a good 10 weeks doing more gi during the week than no gi. But I'd still keep no gi up. I try and keep all my training up because I feel like you kind of lose it a bit if you don't train it. Does that answer it?
Yeah, it really doesn't help you a ton if you've just worked 5 months on developing a great lapel guard or, like you said, spider guard, and now that 5 months is, it's awesome. You've got that like added to your game, and then a big no-gi tournament comes up, and it's like, oh, what have I been doing to help this area of my game? Do you find that sometimes it's a little bit tougher to deal with somebody who does play like an active gi game, or you know what I mean? Because I do the same thing. My game is basically the same whether I'm wearing a gi or not, but sometimes I get tricked a little bit more easily than I think the average person with my skill level, because I don't play with the lapel as much as I could, and I don't do that sort of thing.
I guess one good thing for me, I have, I've gone through phases where I've played probably every, I used to, if you look at some of my footage from 4 years ago, you'll see me doing spider guard, and, I've kind of gone through phases playing each type of guard. And I actually think that's a really important process to do, because you learn, even if you don't end up using that as your main game, like you learn how the leverage works from there and what's going to frustrate someone who does play that game. But I actually don't think it matters. I think it matters less what they're doing, and like you just need to be exposed to it a lot. Like if everyone at your gym's doing, a lasso guard with the gi, and you're exposed to it all the time, but you never do lasso, you'll still get really good at dealing with it. It gets hard when, like, if everyone at my gym had the same philosophy as me and just did like a game that works gi and no gi, and then I went to a competition and someone starts playing spider guard, I'd be like, what's going on? I haven't had to deal with these grips before. I don't know how to deal with these grips. But if you got a lot of people, or at least even if you just got one or two people at your academy that are quite good at that particular game, like I would just grab them every roll until you figure it out. So I think as long as you're exposed to it, that's more important than necessarily whether I play it myself.
Yeah, that's a good point. I do think you get like a better understanding if you can play that game, but being exposed to it's a big deal. How do you develop that culture within the gym of getting people to have their own unique game that they're playing?
When someone asks a question about a technique in class or whatever, you say, you should have a look at Michael Lange. If you want to learn spider guard, have a look at the way he's sweeping people. Or if you see someone's, let's say someone's really flexible about the hips, then you probably know they're going to be good with a spider or lasso guard, especially if they've got long legs and they're flexible. So you can kind of direct people a little bit as well. Like I think, if you studied this guy's game or watch this DVD, he's got a great instructional series on a game that I think would really suit you. We don't do this as much as I'd like, but we did have a video analysis class where we would sort of on the screen get everyone on a Saturday. This was on Saturday mornings. We would get everyone after class. We'd sit down and study like a move that someone was doing in a competition, and we'd try and break it down. And I would try and have a lot of variance in that, especially if I found something interesting. And the aim with that is hoping that then my students would go home and start looking up competitors and trying to study what they're doing and try and emulate that. So I don't want them to be a clone of me. I think it's better. It's much better if you've got different games throughout the club.
Yeah, it'd be a healthier club with a variety of games represented there.
Yep, for sure.
So I'm curious about this, watching video with the students and trying to pick apart what's happening and learn from that. How do you avoid the video that didn't actually help you, as far as, maybe some high competitor did this, but it's really kind of a weird situation, or it's not likely to actually be part of our game, versus how do you find something that several people might be able to bring into their game? Kind of the flashy move versus the new but still very effective technique that you're looking at.
Is it? You're asking how do I choose?
Yeah,
that,
like I guess basically, I could better word that question. If someone's wanting to look for videos and bring that into the part of their training, how do you make sure that it's not training that is not going to help you in the long term?
Yeah. Well, I mean, first, the first thing I'd say is where's it being done? Like if it's being done at the World Championships, you have to assume it's at least an effective technique. The problem is it could be an effective technique in a very unlikely scenario. Like they just ended up in a very weird position, and they just felt that they could do something odd here, and then a person went over, and it might be a mistake to think that's a deliberate set up to that technique, if that makes sense. So if you look at things that are being done at a higher level, but also that are being done repeatedly, like how often is it occurring? Then you're already starting to find out, like if it's happening a lot, if this person's always getting a sweep in a certain way, then you at least know it's an effective technique, and then you probably just have to maybe have a look at their attributes as well and make sure, like if the person's relying a lot on their flexibility for this sweep and you're not flexible, if you're 100 and, I don't use pounds, but let's say you're 200 pounds and you're not flexible, you might not be able to do the same move that these, that you see the Meow brothers doing, But yeah, so I think if it's common and if it's being done if you see it a lot at high level, then that's the technique to work on.
Yeah. If you see something get done from a position that you can't even get to, probably not going to be real useful for you to work on that. But if it's a position you're at all the time and it's something that you've never even seen before, it'd be worth looking into.
Absolutely, yeah.
Looking back, how much of your training early on was you doing this, like looking at videos and trying to figure out what happened and that sort of thing? Was it more then, or is it always been about the same?
I suppose I've always done it. Like, even before I was really studying jiu-jitsu, I used to watch, Kazushi Sakuraba and try to, obviously it was MMA, but try and copy his grappling techniques when I was in jiu-jitsu class. But probably over the last, from 8 years ago when I really started, taking jiu-jitsu more seriously, that was a lot. I was looking at the Mendes brothers and the Berimbolo and all sorts of techniques that I thought were pretty innovative compared to what we'd been learning. Spider guard was one, and so I would say a lot. It's a funny thing where, like, actually, looking through my jiu-jitsu career, most of the guys that I see that have gotten really good have done something different to what their coach, like their game's actually quite different to what their coach has as their game.
Why do you think that is?
That's a very good question. Well, actually, I think for one, like most of the time, the best techniques, like why not go, a lot of the time you're going to say, well, why not just go to the source? Like, for example, some of the people I'm thinking of were studying, they were doing X-guard and so on, which wasn't a popular thing at the time. And they really excelled and got really good at grappling, doing like basically Marcelo Garcia's game. And I think that's just the fact that they're looking at, well, who's the best guy in the world right now? And why don't I do what they're doing? As opposed, which is kind of not what your coach wants you to think. A lot of the time, I actually want my students to think like that. Like if my students say to me, "Oh, I'm not going to do your game, Lachlan, I'm going to do, what Lucas Lepri's doing." Oh, cool, go for it. Like that's he's the best guy in my weight division. Like he's, whatever he's doing, it's better than what I'm doing right now. At least, yeah. So I think like going to the best guys for a source of information is definitely a good thing. But that said, I think like something I've definitely come to think now. Like if you watch the World Championships, and you might see the guy who's coming 10th, right? he could actually be the most technical guy in the competition, but he's just not the best competitor, or doesn't have the speed or strength or power or whatever, aggression, mindset, anything that's required to get him over the line. But anyone that's competing at that level has very good technique, and I think we tend to want to just study the guys who are winning everything, but like, the Mendes brothers and so on. But there's actually a bunch of people out there, I'm sure, have amazing technique that are just not being studied.
Yeah, that's an interesting point, and it does. A lot of people do get overlooked. Could it be that if somebody goes, let's just keep with Marcel Garcia, and they want to learn, the X guard, and they go there and they train, and they're really picking it up, and they're learning the details behind it, but also presented to them is the opportunity to be in his X guard, and if he can't sweep you with his X guard, or if you could pass his X guard, you have one of the best games to deal with that guard around. And I think that sometimes it is a good idea to look at your coach and try to do what they do, but it's also a great tool to try to counter what they're doing, because they're already really good at it, and it does make a different game, but it's just like the opposite of what they're doing as far as like you said, when you're happy when your teammate goes and trains like somebody else, because they have that to bring to you, and it helps everybody. Yeah.
I think if we go back to that, well, let's say I have a student that the aim is for your students to get better than the coach, right? It's going to be a long process for someone to get better than me at my own game that I've been doing for a long time, right? So if they're copying me, I'm going to know everything they're doing, and I'm going to make it really difficult. But if I have a student that's, studying a game that I'm not that familiar with, he will then have an avenue to potentially make a pretty big leap in catching up to me, in making the role hard, or potentially even beating me if they get proficient enough at that particular technique. So I think a lot of that comes there, like where people try a different thing that's like a different technique or move that most people aren't doing, and they actually get more success because no one's dealt with defending it. And then they're sort of ahead of the curve, and as people are learning to defend, they're learning how to counter that. But it's kind of nice being the person winning. I think you can adapt much better than if everyone's just stopping your game and crushing it right from the start.
Yeah, it is. It's nice to be the person that's winning and doing well.
Yeah.
You mentioned an interesting point that I don't know if I've heard on this show in well over 200 episodes, that somebody might in the top 10 at a tournament, be number 9, number 8, number 10, whatever. They might technically be the best person there, but for some reason, physically or mentally, they don't get out there and take first. And so they're often ignored. It kind of just brings up the off the mat training, body or mind. What do you do off the mat to prepare yourself for a competition? And it could be mentally, or it could be training off the mat.
Off the mat, I don't know. I don't do too much. You mean like the day before the competition?
Yeah, no.
Or just
are you? Do you do weight training, or is all your physical training done on the mats? Are you doing any additional cardio?
Oh, okay. I actually don't do any. Well, I before ADCC, because I wanted to get a little bit heavier. I usually walk around at about 78 kilos if I'm fit and healthy, and ADCC is 77 kilograms, but you kind of I want it to be actually about 81, 82 kilograms, and then have to cut a bit to make weight for ADCC. So I actually started doing some weights. I think I got up to about 81 kilos. So I did some weights for that. And I definitely felt, to be honest, that I was a bit stronger and the benefits of it, but I just don't enjoy it. So I actually don't do any weight training, which is, probably, in the lead up to big competitions, I'll maybe be focusing on that a little bit more. Just I think certain areas, if you're strong, will make a big difference. But at the same time, if you become more technical, that lasts forever. If you get stronger, it lasts until you stop doing weights. So it's a kind of I see it as almost like a short-term boost in your abilities by doing weights, unless you want to keep the weights going all the time, whereas you get like long-term improvements in your technique if you focus on that. So if I have to choose to be sore from weights or sore from jiu-jitsu, I'd rather be sore from jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, and I think you kind of alluded to it's just not as an enjoyable a process for you, and jiu-jitsu is fun. And so I'm in the same boat. If I could enjoy lifting weights, I'd be in a lot better shape as far as muscles go. But I enjoy jiu-jitsu, so I have a kind of a jiu-jitsu guy's body, I guess.
Yeah, it's interesting here. Obviously a lot of competitors do and don't lift weights, and you see some people that are the best in the world that don't lift weights, which is amazing. And some people that lift weights like crazy. Even guys like, I think, this may or may not be true, so I don't know. But I believe Rafael Mendes doesn't do weights anymore. I think he used to, but now he says he just wants to, he thinks the technique's enough, which is pretty cool. Yeah,
and for the competitors out there who are just trying to do their best, sometimes a little bit of off-the-mat training, whether it be cardio or weights, actually does make that difference, because sometimes at the end of the competition, you get down to the last two people, the difference is so slight as far as who's going to win, and it'd be nice to be able to just outskill everybody, but if you could push the pace and make somebody tired or just physically have an advantage of somebody, it could be in the difference between getting gold or silver.
Yeah, I think cardio you can train by just rolling hard. Yeah. That's actually one area where can be hard as a coach, because you almost want someone else telling you to roll. Like it could be easy to get lazy. You're tired. You're the one that's running the class. We won't do any more rolls. Whereas if you got someone who's running the class and come on guys, 2 more rounds. Let's go hard. That's a good way to force people to kind of push beyond what they're comfortable with. Yeah,
and for me, it's not usually lack of rounds, but it's who's next and then who's after that person and who's after I get 3 or 4 good rounds in, I'm looking for the kid. I'm like, okay, let me see, and then somebody else grabs me. Oh man, here we go. I don't need to take a full break, but sometimes just taking a little bit lighter around is kind of a way I think I cheat myself as far as getting the best cardio I can. Yeah.
Then there's some gyms where they pick your training partners for you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
If you don't, and there's the people who naturally want the toughest match they can get every time. Yeah. And at the end of the mat session, they're not doing well, but they've learned a lot and they've really pushed themselves.
Yeah. That's good.
Lachlan, I've had a lot of fun talking with you, getting to know you a little bit here. Are you up for playing a round of the Family Feud?
All right, I got no idea what to expect
here. I guess that's the fun part. And they'll be there. Just to give you a heads up, they're not jiu-jitsu related. I literally have the game Family Feud here, and I got questions out of that because I don't know how I would develop Family Feud questions for jiu-jitsu. But here we go. Name something you do to make a good impression when interviewing for a job.
Smile.
Name something you do when you want to buy something you can't afford.
Work.
You're giving real good answers, but I think they're actually good advice, and I think people make mistakes in life. So, name something you failed miserably at the first time you tried.
No, nothing's coming to my head.
Okay.
There is plenty of things. I just can't. I don't know why nothing's coming to my head.
I'll try it. We'll go to the next one. Name something you feel in the dark for.
In the dark for? I don't know much about?
Like you're feeling for something in this dark.
It's bad?
No, okay. Like in the middle of the night, you're feeling around for something. What would you be feeling for?
Oh, okay. I thought you meant had dark feelings about something. Okay. Probably a phone. Yeah. Phone.
Okay. Name something you hate to get into when it's cold.
Snow.
Snow. Okay. Well, Lachlan, you did. You got. I think you were too. You actually had good advice. Smile. Name something to do in a job interview. Smile. You got 11 points for that answer. Dress nicely was the number one answer. I think a smile will go very far for you, though. Name something you can't do that you do when you can't afford to buy something. Work extra was worth 4 points, which is what you should do.
That's right.
Charge it is the, or just go ahead and buy it anyway was the number one answer.
Oh, really?
Yeah, but I like your working attitude there. Name something that you failed miserably at the first time you tried. Driving was the biggest answer there. Name something you feel for in the dark. Light switch was the number one answer, followed by glasses, and then
Really?
Name something you.
How do glasses help if you?
I don't. A phone, actually. A phone is the same thing as a flashlight. That's worth 5 points. Name something you hate to get into when it's cold. The number one answer was a car. So
Yeah, I hate that too. Yeah, more than I'd hate to get in the snow more, but I don't know what getting in the snow means. So,
so you got 20 points. I think you had good answers, but they were just a little bit, like it all says it with you charge it to make it, instead of work harder. I do know you have a lot of people helping you out there. Do you have any sponsors you'd like to mention?
Yeah, MA1 Apparel. So ma1.com.au, or I believe they're in the States as well. ma1fitness.com.
And what kind of stuff
strength
have
and
you?
conditioning gear,
Okay.
and in Australia they've got gis. I'm not sure if they have that. I think they've got gis and so on in the States too. But so they're very good. They help us out a lot. So
Yeah, I do see that they have gis and belts and grappling shorts as well. And I'll put links to both the Australian website and the United States website on there for everybody to check them out.
Perfect. Thank you very much, Byron.
Thank you. And where can we find you if someone's wanting to come train with you, or just your website?
Absolute Mixed Martial Arts in Kilda, absolutemma.net.au.
All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Cheers.
I'd like to thank Lachlan Giles for coming on the show here. One of the things I really liked is the thing that Byron was so excited about. Right after Byron interviewed him, I was talking to Byron. He, just smiled all over his face. And he was talking about the takedown part that Lachlan was talking about, where a lot of times, you practice takedowns, you end up, exposing your neck, and you end up getting choked out. And then you get gunshot. You just stop doing them. And what I like is what he's doing is he basically takes away submissions when you're going for your takedowns. Basically, the takedown is the most important part. You're trying to get it to the floor, and if you just keep getting choked out every time, you're going to stop it. You're going to stop going for it. So I just kind of like, I thought that was a great idea. Let's get the takedown down. Let's get the level change. Get the shot in there. Let's push through. Let's take the person down. And then once we get that part down, then we'll start working on, little alterations, to make sure our head, is not exposed. Maybe work on keep your head in the chest, how to hop the legs to get into side mount. But I just thought that was great advice, and, something I could have really used early in my career where, I was going for takedowns. I was getting choked out. So then I would be like, okay, cool. You take me down. I want to choke somebody out instead. And that's probably why my stand-up game is garbage, just due to that.
Yep, got to have a top and a bottom game. So really great interview, really knowledgeable guy.
Yeah, look forward. We don't ever want to have somebody, back on super fast, but yeah, we'll be getting him back on the show as time marches on, and just look forward to having him become one of our people we get on every year or so, and we learn from and catch back up with. So yeah, hopefully he's up for that again, I hope. And continue to get guests like him and also him back on the show. That was, I know you guys enjoyed the interview. I had such a great time doing it. I feel like that's a good marker for me. If I'm having a good time, I'm learning a lot. I know that the audience probably is too as well.
Yeah, I noticed like on all the, I haven't been in very many interviews. You do them most, but it's like you said, you end up, and I know, Joe, you've done some too. You end up, just having a good time with the interview. And every interview I've been in, I've had a really great time, except for one. Can you guess which one that might be?
Somebody interviewed Byron at one point, didn't they?
Yeah,
maybe that's it.
Man, that was a tough episode.
Joe for 1,000.
Yeah, it's tough when you get a boring guest or a boring interview.
Yeah, it's terrible.
No, but really, what's not to like about sitting around and talking jiu-jitsu with somebody that's really good at it, has a lot of knowledge to share? An hour just doesn't seem like enough time mostly.
Yeah, and it's crazy like what you and Byron were saying, that we learn from audio. We think that we have to see a video to learn and, a demonstration. But, we started this show talking about ways to communicate. And, when you have an instructor, like Lachlan there, who can explain stuff so well, just, with words without even, demonstrating it, you've got an incredible instructor and somebody who can make you understand it just with the words part. And like Joe said, I could talk jiu-jitsu all day long. It's it's a time that it's my happy spot, my happy time.
That, what, I'm going to do a little bit of history here. Really, I don't remember how much you remember, Gary. We'd have Friday night trainings, small group. I think 3 was a perfect number. Always odd, so you kind of we do a lot of round robin positional sparring, and this was while I had the website, but I did not have the podcast. And we would get done, say bye to everybody, and then we would just chat about jiu-jitsu in the parking lot forever. Like you and me, we'd just kind of go back and forth and talk about this or that. And then somewhere it clicked, like, we should do a podcast, because if we just record these conversations, I think it would be interesting. And we've both learned a lot since then and sharpened our ideas, but that's kind of what got the idea in my head anyway about doing a podcast.
The good thing about us doing jiu-jitsu, when we went and we'd spend, 20 minutes, 30 minutes after in the parking lot talking about it, that parking lot was in a bad area of town. And,
yes, it was.
That jiu-jitsu could have saved us. I'm looking back at it now, and I was like, man, we used to just sit there in the parking lot. I'm surprised we didn't get jacked.
Yeah, we were too sweaty to get messed with.
Yeah, and too ugly.
Yes, that also helps. Yeah. That's another benefit of being ugly, I guess. Oh, man.
Joe doesn't have that problem.
Yeah, right. I'm old, broken, beaten, scarred. I guess no one messes with that guy anyway, so.
Yeah, that's the guy you don't want to mess with. It's, that guy, he last person I want to mess with.
Something that you might want to mess with is our sponsor. It's Health IQ, and if you're interested in getting a really good rate on life insurance, click on the little banner on the website or in your show notes and check it out. You can get a free quote on your life insurance. You're a healthy person. You're training all the time, or at least several times a week, I hope. And really, it's going to show with the benefits on and off the mat. You're getting better at jiu-jitsu. That's awesome. B, off the mat, you're living a healthier lifestyle, even if it's just because you work out. Typically, when you start working out doing jiu-jitsu, you eat a little healthier because you notice that when you're on the mat and you eat garbage before, you don't perform as well. And so it just kind of helps you clean up your diet a little bit, and maybe you'll sleep a little bit better at night. So all these things kind of compound, and you end up living longer. Health IQ recognizes that. They contacted us and said, hey, we're really looking into sponsoring a jiu-jitsu style of podcast because, jiu-jitsu is a healthy lifestyle. You guys are going to live longer than the average people out there. And I'm like, yeah, we are. It's no secret to us. If you do this correctly, you add years to your life. If you do it incorrectly, you end up all broken, beat up. And
kind of like what Joe just said he was.
That's part of the podcast is we're trying to communicate how to train properly to where you can keep doing this for a long, long time. I think we all had similar starts where we're trying to be tougher than we need to be. We're hard on our bodies. We're training people who aren't really being super safe with us sometimes, and not super safe. I mean, but just you be considerate. I fully expect most of my training partners to actually get close to injuring me if I don't tap in time. But I tap in time, so it's not that's how we train. But anyway, the jiu-jitsu lifestyle is a healthy one. If you're listening to the podcast, you probably are living a fairly healthy lifestyle, probably more healthy than the average cat out there. And check the website out. You can learn more about it. You get a free quote and see if you qualify, my friends.
One of the best things is how many people have you seen start jiu-jitsu that, are overweight and maybe on, statins, maybe have high blood pressure. And, a year into their journey, they have lost so much weight. They're off medicine. They're really watching what they're eating and just became so much more healthier. And, jiu-jitsu is, changes a lot of people's lives. And, especially you put all that time into being healthy. Why pay higher rates, and being grouped in with people who are unhealthy? And that's the cool thing about Health IQ. So definitely check it out. Go online and get a quote or call them up and definitely let them know that you heard about it from BjjBrick.
Yep. Tell a friend. And hey, if you like this podcast, tell a friend about this podcast as well. We've got almost 4,000 likes on Facebook. Our downloads are growing, so we appreciate you guys passing the word on. If you see something you like, share it with your friends.
Yeah, we are not a major player in the podcasting world or the jiu-jitsu world, but we're one of the top jiu-jitsu podcasts. It's because people like you share the word. We're not, buying tons of ads. We might in the future, as we're growing and trying to build the show, but we really want to just have a good time and keep producing quality content. And that's been done with you guys sharing the podcast, you guys supporting us on Patreon, and getting a little bit of sponsorship here and there to help build the show. But largely, the audience, you guys, are our biggest support that we could have.
And Byron, who's the MVP this week? Who is our newest member?
Oh, man. Okay, you're talking about Patreon. Brian B. from Texas. Thanks so much for signing up on Patreon. He's going to support the show. Every time a show comes out, Brian's kicking us $1. And just to say, hey, I appreciate it. It's helping me out in my jiu-jitsu. It's worth $1 a week to support you guys. And, man, so, Brian, thanks so much, my friend. I would like to get you added to the Facebook private group so you can have input on, stuff we ask future guests and that sort of thing. I found you on Facebook, my friend, but I can't add you as a friend or a member, so I need you to contact me and add me as a friend, and then I'll get you into the group if that's something you want to do. If not, that's fine. Not everybody's a member of the group that supports us on Patreon. I also sent him a 5-inch BJJBrick gi patch and a sticker. So, hopefully we'll be seeing Brian soon. He's in Texas, kind of near the Dallas area, and hopefully he'll be coming up for the big BJJBrick event, June 23rd, 24th. We said last time that you kind of have to cap it at these people that were already signed up, but that episode didn't air until Brian already signed up. So, Brian, you are the last one who's eligible for attending this event and having us cover you. So, congrats on that, Brian. Hope to see you up here. We'll cover your door charges. You got to get here, my friend, and we'll have a great time.
Ding, 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 ding. We have a winner. That's awesome. Brian from Texas, if you're ever down in Houston, let us know. I'm in Lake Jackson, and I'd love to train with you. Any other listeners, if you're ever traveling through the Houston area or New Orleans, I spent some time in Louisiana, let me know. I'd love to come train with you. And Gary, where can they train with you?
Wichita, Kansas. If you're ever in the Midwest, the air capital of the world, stop on by or send us a message on our Facebook page, BjjBrick@gmail.com. We'd love to train with you. Hey, also about Brian there, he is actually thinking about making a mat tail for us too. So I told him if he does to send it in to us at BjjBrick@gmail.com. We haven't had a mat tail in a long time, so I'm going to plug mat tails. So if you have some crazy thing that has happened in your jiu-jitsu journey, anything that you want to put into a story format, just send us an email. Byron will jazz it all up and make it sound cool. But definitely send it to us at bjjbrick@gmail.com.
I just for fun. It has been a while. I've been so busy. I haven't been able to make Matt Tales, but we do need the stories coming in because they kind of build each other. So Brian's will be sent in hopefully, and hopefully a few more get sent after that, and it'll build. I'm going to air an old Matt Tale just to kind of give you guys a little sample of what's happening here. So here we go. Here's an old Matt Tale.
This is Matt Tales. We bring you amazing jiu-jitsu stories. The stories might be funny, unfortunate. It could be about an epic fail or an epic win. So sit back, my friend, relax, dry off your sweat from rolling, and enjoy Matt Tales.
I own and operate a small jiu-jitsu gym. We're a growing group of people who like to have fun on the mats and work very hard. As the years go by and the clock ticks, we have definitely developed an adult sense of humor with the language to back it up. With many of our adults wanting to bring kids in and start a kids class, I decided that we needed to clean up our language. And what better way than to clean up our language and make a little bit of money at the same time was to start a swear jar, where if you're heard saying a cuss word, which are quite frequent in my gym, you put in $1 to cover that word. Well, shoot, as I said that day, this is going to be a challenge. All us knuckleheads and cusserinos are going to have a tough time not paying this jar a bunch of money. Well, it started to backfire pretty much immediately. When several of the students put in money in advance and enjoyed the idea kind of mockingly. By the end of the second day, the swear jar had $120, and the cuss words were flowing like a river. It's the third day. The third day started to get to me. My students saw that I was not cussing, and they wanted to change that. They started to get a little bit ornery. That day, I couldn't find my shoes. Little did I know they hid them from me, and I ended up paying $3 to the swear jar before I found them. The next day, one of them, quote, accidentally wore my gi as he warmed up and got it all sweaty. I don't want to wear my sweaty gi when some other shithead had it on, getting it all sweaty. I believe that one cost me about $5. About a week or so after the swear jar started, and I'm training and teaching class and everything's going great, no one's saying any cuss words or anything like that. Class is over. Not $1 has been paid to the swear jar. I'm really feeling proud. I feel like we're ready to start a kids class. We could bring kids into this environment and have them not exposed to that kind of a language. I go to my car and it's missing. My car was missing. Shortly before I called the police, my students informed me that they just relocated it around the block. $20 in the swear jar. Although the swear jar has cost us some money, we're going to be buying a few different kids' gis for kids to use while they try out our gym. So that's definitely a win. And it also helped us not swear so much.
This has been Matt Tales. Some of the names and places may have changed. We may in fact have taken some creative liberties with the story. In order to keep Matt Tales going, we need more tales. Tales from listeners like you. Send your tales to BjjBrick@gmail.com. We look forward to hearing your amazing stories.
All right, that's fun to relive those. It's crazy. I work so hard on each Matt Tale, and we air it one time, and it's like, okay, there's 5 minutes, and then it goes away forever. So I don't feel bad about re-airing those. I know that you guys enjoy listening to those stories. I mentioned the BJJBrick event. June 23rd, Tim Sled, Rolly Delgado will be in Wichita, Kansas, training with us and teaching seminars. June 24th, we'll be teaching a little bit of jiu-jitsu that we like to do, the BJJBrick crew, and rolling with you guys. And, of course, we'll be hanging out off the mat, on the mat, a lot of good times. We're looking forward to getting people from in Wichita to train and also people from out of town. If you're coming from a ways out of town, send me an email, make sure that I know you're coming, and we'll set up a little bit of a reward system. We're going to be giving away some DVDs. I review DVDs on the YouTube channel, and I've got them piling up, and man, not doing me any good anymore. So time to pass on and share the wealth. So that could be you if you're coming from, I don't know, if you're coming from more than 50 or 100 miles away, let me know in advance, and I'll put you down. First come, first serve on the DVD pile, my friends. Register quick, or at least let me know quick. We'd love to make it as much fun and worthwhile as possible. And that's one thing I think we could do to reward you guys for showing up and having a good time with us.
Make sure and bring your best gi for the glamour photo shoot with Gary and Byron. Want to look good for that, guys.
Man,
yeah,
I like
then,
style.
Maybe we can all get matching tattoos like we talked about earlier, too. So that'd be something kind of cool.
BJJBrick event 2018, June.
Yeah.
Like, who would want that on their body forever?
Yeah, that's awesome.
That's awesome. That's a mistake. What's not a mistake is BernardoFria.com. Man, I really appreciate Bernardo. World-class athlete. Multiple-time black belt world champion. Look at his website. He's putting out stuff all the time, helping people get better at jiu-jitsu. He's kind of making the transition from, athlete to coach and entrepreneur online and helping people get better at jiu-jitsu for what he can. And he does articles all the time. It's great stuff. His article is called Purple Belt, the hardest belt in BJJ. We'll put a link in the show notes. Check it out, man. It's cool. So he's just kind of sharing some of his thoughts about the different belt levels, why some of them are tough, why some of them are not as tough. And he's calling purple belt, I don't know why I stumbled over the word purple, it's kind of the middle of the journey where a lot of people struggle. White belt, he says, it's good because you're just starting and you're happy and you're excited to train. And, blue belt, you're happy about getting that first promotion. Purple belt, he sees people kind of stall out sometimes and get frustrated with their progress because, man, purple belts are good at jiu-jitsu. If you just you just got your purple belt, you're just basically on the border from blue to purple. Some of those purple belts are tapping out brown belts pretty regularly. Those guys are animals. And it's just like, I understand that could be a frustrating belt. It's oftentimes the longest belt as well. You spend a lot of time there. But, yeah. So he's calling the purple belt the hardest belt in BJJ.
I really like Bernardo. I like the content he puts out. One of the things I like about him is he doesn't try and get lost in the weeds and deep and nerd out on, fine details and concepts. He keeps it pretty simple and everybody can relate to what he writes. And he's just writing this from his own perspective. And I appreciate that. As the purple belt among this group, I'm not sure what I would say about it. I think it might be the point in your career where you sort of realize that it's a really, really long journey. I mean, you know that at white belt, you know it at blue belt, but there is something about working really, really hard at something for 5 or 6 years and then kind of just being at the midway point, especially in a day and age where we see other martial arts that have gone the other direction and 5 years in, if you're not a black belt, there's something wrong. So maybe from that perspective it's a little bit difficult, but I don't know. So far I haven't found it to be any more difficult being a purple belt than I did a blue belt.
Yeah, I think they're all tough. I mean, jiu-jitsu is not an easy sport. We're going to go through trials and tribulations, struggles, ups and downs. I just remember being as a white belt, and when I had a white belt, I was thinking how long that journey is, kind of like what you're saying, and how I was just getting beat up every day. I was learning stuff, but I just didn't put it together. It's I see where he's coming from, a purple belt, like you were saying. It's right in the middle of the belts. You still got a long way to go, and you've learned so much at blue and white that you're just not learning new stuff all the time. I think you start getting into concepts a lot more, it's I don't know what I felt has been the toughest belt. I don't have a black belt, so I can't tell you on that, but it's I just think they're all kind of tough, and it's never an easy time.
Yeah. Everybody's journey is different. So if you're a blue belt and you're experiencing a lot of difficult times, that might be your personal toughest belt. But he does see a lot of people struggle with purple belt. So there I stumbled over the word again. It's unique to us. But a lot of people hit like a plateau at purple and they get frustrated. So just take that for what it's worth. I do think that off the mat things could devastate your jiu-jitsu more than any on the mat troubles you get. If you have troubles with relationships, family troubles, health troubles, trouble keeping a job or having a hard time at school, of course your jiu-jitsu is going to suffer. And I'm thankful my life right now is pretty stable and I'm able to keep training. But certainly if my wife or I become unhealthy or my job gets in jeopardy, whatever. Oh yeah, jiu-jitsu is going to have to either take a back burner or it's going to suffer a lot. The podcast might be a little bit, it's just the life cycle that we go through, and it's hard to say that because you're purple belt, if you're able to train a ton and it's the perfect time of your life to train, you might go straight through it, and then you get to brown belt, and then you're going through a divorce or something is tough. And man, brown belt sucked for you. Well, that's we all have to deal with our own struggles. I was thinking about this article, and I was rolling with the white belt the other day. Person had about 6 months on the mat, and I got to thinking, all of the white belts with 6 months on the mat that I have rolled with in a long time are way better than I was when I had a year on the mat. It's just the training is better. Really, Gary, we had a purple belt with us and then a group of white belts. So our training partners were other white belts. And now you get a gym.
And we only had 2 days a week.
Yeah. So
if you missed one of those days, we didn't have other days to go to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's just, and I think that's the way it is for jiu-jitsu all over the place. White belts today with 6 months are better than white belts 10 years ago, 15 years ago, with way more time than 6 months. I don't know. So if you experience that frustration, just know that you're probably doing the right things. It's just a tough thing. I know my wife is better than I was when I had the same amount of time on the mat as she did. Easy comparison. I mean, she's just more technical. She's doing things correctly that I know I was doing wrong at her time frame. I don't know. It's hard to compare, and it's not necessarily a healthy thing to compare yourself with other people, but just know that there's never been a better time to train jiu-jitsu than right now. So check out the article. We'll put a link in the show notes, bernardofria.com, and there's lots of good stuff there. We could use this about every week, but we like to kind of spread it around a little bit more like jelly.
Yeah. Hey, also definitely go on there. He's got a free ebook, Your Guide to a Lifetime of Enjoying and Improving Your Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. So definitely a free ebook. Anything that's free, you can't beat that, and especially from Bernardo. So just go on there, click on the free ebook link, and you'll love it as much as I do.
Man, I collect those things. I don't know about anybody else, but there's a lot of guys out there that do a free ebook or free mini seminar online or something. I get all those things, and I learned a ton from them. So take advantage of the resources available, guys.
Yeah, just like what Byron was saying, it's a great time. Compared to when we started, there wasn't much out there, but all these free ebooks and free seminars, like Joe said, I'm a nerd, and I grab all those too. And any free resource I can get, I'm loving it.
Joe is calling you a nerd because you guys got matching tattoos, and his is actually temporary, and he tricked you into getting the real one.
I told you he's smarter than me, but The thing too, we're talking about smart. We're talking about, a penny saved is a penny earned, increasing our knowledge. And that's what I really like. People trying to go forward, increasing their knowledge, trying to improve a deficiency. And today we're going to change it around a little bit here. Byron's got an ebook. And
Byron is just Byron.
No, just Byron. Just Byron. You know, what had happened here one day is Byron woke up, and it may have been due to being choked out numerous times, but all of a sudden he had issues, and he could not say some words. He had a lisp. He couldn't say purple anymore. So what Byron does is he now is getting, he has an ebook that he's going to talk about. That's not an ebook, but what do we call them?
Audiobook,
an A-book. He's got an A-book coming out where he's going to teach us, how to stop the lisp and say purple properly. And that's one of the we have to say that 10 times every morning, purple properly. And so Byron, tell us about how you got this lisp, and how you have struggled saying, the P words, like purple and properly. And persimmon.
This is persimmon. It's a bit of an embarrassing story. And, this is the time in the podcast where one of us throws another person a fake audiobook, and we got to explain it. In case you're new to the show, that's what's happening here. Although this audiobook is very real, right, Gary?
It is definitely real. Wouldn't you agree, Joe?
I would agree. And I also have to say that was a little bit deceptive, Byron, when you say, one of us always throws the other. Like sometimes it goes one way and sometimes it goes the other. What you really meant is every week when I throw Gary and Joe under the bus.
Yeah, that's true. Okay. Well, so this is about dealing with a bit of a lisp. And what he mentioned about, waking up and starting with that. Gary and Joe got matching tattoos. Joe tricked Gary into getting a real one. He's a bit upset by this. He chokes me unconscious while training. He said this roll half speed, and man, he came at me like a wounded cougar and put me out. I didn't see it coming.
I had your back, literally.
You did. You took my back literally for the first time in a long time. I wake up, and it appears that I have a tongue ring now. I don't know how you pulled that sort of a thing off while I was unconscious for the few seconds, but man, I can't talk right, and being purple is difficult. I need to get that thing taken out of there. And that's basically what it boils down to. It's not really how to deal with it. It's more about trusting your training partners to not do anything like that while you're choked unconscious. I'm grateful that he let go of the choke. Not really grateful of the piercing I received while I was out. But it'll all go away once I remove this thing.
So, Gary, Byron's giving us this crazy story, and it sounds like something your kid comes home with when he just got a new lip ring and he needs an excuse to tell you how he got it.
How did he get it?
It was a long night in Galveston, Texas.
But so, you ended up with a tongue ring. Why didn't you just take the tongue ring out, Byron, so you could say the P words like purple, persimmons, properly?
That's a good question. I was hoping it would somehow enhance my grappling ability.
I didn't think it. You were telling me to enhance something else, but not your grappling ability.
That's so. That was a big misunderstanding. And if anything, it's making my grappling worse. So yeah, I'm gonna have to remove it. I still haven't even bothered to take my mouthpiece out yet from when I was rolling. So I'm just really caught off guard by this whole thing and just surprised by getting this. The moral of the story is don't let Gary take her back, even figuratively.
But I like that you, after your very last chapter, you talk about tongue exercises so you can say different, you can speak different tongues and you can say different words. Yeah, you speak in tongue. So tell us about how you speak in tongue. That was pretty neat.
Yeah, that's the Gary. You're really throwing me under this bus here. That's moving pretty fast. I don't know. That's a top secret chapter. I'm still working on developing that right now. Basically, you want to do this while you're rolling and just confuse somebody. It could be anything from just kind of mumbling something that they can't understand. They try to comprehend what you just said, and then you slap on your submission to mumbling something that they think they understand that doesn't even make sense. and kind of like that double speak that they did on Saturday Night Live, and just confusing your opponent. That's basically been the biggest advantage of this whole thing.
That's great advice.
Yeah, not really, Gary, but that's all I can come up with. I had an audiobook for you, but maybe we'll say it for next week. Something about the grappling chaps and attacking, turning turtle guard into horse guard. But
well, that's the thing about jiu-jitsu. I mean, we have to be able to move on the fly,
That's
be able
right.
to change stuff up. And I know Joe and I were going to go down a road we didn't really want to go down, so I had to change it around here pretty quick.
And another
you
important concept in jiu-jitsu is going first. Go first. If you want to shoot takedown, if you want to start past, just go before the other person starts to go. And Gary did that. Well played, my friend.
Thank you. Joe, we got a day that we can just rest a little bit.
Nice. Thank you. You had my back today.
Figuratively.
Oh, next week, man, we got a really nice show. Stephen Whittier is back on the show. I was looking. It's been years since he's been on the show, and had a great interview with him the first time around. Super happy to get him back on. I can't believe it's been this long. And just happy to share what he's doing. He's helping everybody, but really geared towards a little bit older grapplers, which I know a couple, and helping to stay on the mat and get all the benefits that jiu-jitsu can provide.
Joe, I think Byron was taking a couple more pot shots at us.
I think he was, but there's some truth in the statement. And if you're out there and you've got a gimpy shoulder, gimpy knee, you're just not as young as you used to be, this is one guy you want to pay attention to. He's got some good resources out there for us older guys.
Yep, even if you got a gimpy tongue.
Yep.
No, it doesn't really help you on that category. Anyway, I had a great time this week, guys. Even if I got a little bit out of my hands into my mouth. That's awkward.
Man, this show has really went off topic.
We'll catch you guys next week. Stay sweaty, my friends.
And don't forget to shower.
Train hard, train smart, get better, and we'll see you on the mats, guys.
Hang in there, purple belts.
Thank you for listening. I hope you find the time today to roll. After all, the best way to get better at Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu is to do Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu.
So how much of your training, and this might get kind of back into the history of jiu-jitsu in Australia, was done with videos and sort of that sort of, that's a poor sentence. How much of that training was used, how much of your training early on was videos or people coming in and teaching a seminar and you had to grab onto that when you had it versus having just great training partners around you all the time?
You're talking about 15 years ago? Or,
that was a... I'll just retry the whole damn question because that was terrible.
No, that's all right, yeah.
Okay. Looking back, how much of your training early on was you doing this, like looking at videos and trying to figure out what happened,